Hello, Timmy.
Hi,
Hey,
Adrian. Hi, June. How's everyone doing?
Good, thank you.
you've done so much in the last 3 years. You've done so much despite COVID. But the last time you were playing for us, your career continues to fly up. And June, look at him. He has not aged a day. In fact, you look even younger. You've done more and look younger than I have. I've aged about 10 years since we've last seen each other in Vancouver, and I've done nothing. So you got to tell us your secret. What's your secret, Timmy?
Don't sleep.
No sleep.
No, I'm kidding. Um, well, I think, yeah, it's been an incredible journey over the past 3, 4 years. And honestly, if you asked me 3, 4 years ago, would I imagine all of this happening? I mean, first of all, I don't think any of us expected COVID to happen. And I hope none of us did. But also, I think like everything that just happened, everything just kind of just clicked into place. And I'm just so incredibly grateful just to see that I'm having all these opportunities just come right in front of me. And being in my 20s, I think this is like the perfect time to just explore a little bit of everything and just seeing how what fits into my life and also representing that through myself as an artist. So that's, yeah, it's been, I remember that first time that I mean, the second time I played at Music in the Morning when you were there for the first time, it was just as I entered Juilliard for my master's degree.
Wow.
Look
And
what happened.
now, June, he's Professor Chooi. He's a professor at
Oh,
University of Ottawa. You're probably the youngest professor in their history. Am I correct?
I have no idea. Maybe.
well, thank you. Should we introduce you as professor now? Is that
It feels weird to say something like that. You can just call me Timmy still.
young guy to get that? Well, do you think that winning those competitions really gave you a terrific opportunity to play around? Is
Mhm.
that what the competitions are probably the best for, is to get these gigs afterwards? I mean, they're very prestigious too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think these competitions, they definitely opened a new market for me. For example, I don't think that I would have as much opportunities to play in Europe as I do now if I didn't have if I didn't win those competitions. And I think that definitely was a huge gateway. I think it's not definitely the only way, but it's probably the fastest way of getting there. As I did, and definitely also open a whole bunch of opportunities actually back home as well and here in the US. So it's kind of just, it just opens a whole bunch of doors.
Yeah.
Good.
Wow.
And we're all proud of you, Timmy. Tell us a little bit about you. You grew up. You're a BC boy. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was born and raised in Victoria, BC, to first generation immigrant parents, and they just wanted me and my brother to have a better life than where they were growing up, a lot of political instability from where they were coming from, and just hoping that we would have a peaceful and normal life, that we could just be happy kids and live the, I guess, North American dream at the time is what it was called. And did they expect us to become musicians? Absolutely not. What they wanted us at first was to be exposed to everything that was available to us as being born in a very wealthy country. And for them, that meant doing sports, being in a really good school, playing music. And funny enough, my parents to this day are just like, ugh, two musicians in one household. How did that happen, right? We must have obviously been pushing you guys in the wrong direction. But my brothers first started out with that route, and then I think I just got really inspired by the way he was developing his life and what that life was looking like. And quickly after that, auditioned for the Curtis Institute of Music when I was about, I think, 14 or 15. That happened, and then moved to Philadelphia. And then I was way too young to live on my own, so my parents also immigrated into the US. And ever since that, it's just been one big giant blur.
They must be very word proud. I mean, and wow, they chose the right path for you to follow. You started with the Suzuki method, didn't you, Adrian, as well?
I did. That's right.
Yeah, it's obviously a good method.
I would
In
say so. I would say so because I remember those days still. I didn't stay in Suzuki for very long. I think only about 3 or 4 years. And I just remember that I enjoyed those 3 or 4 years so much. I just, every single day, even if I wasn't very good, I was just very basic on learning the violin. I wanted to spend those 5 or 10 minutes a day just singing and playing and clapping and listening by ear all of those Little Bunny Stop Stop pieces, Go Tell Aunt Rhody, Baccarini, and all that. I still remember those songs, and even to this day, when I hear those, it just immediately snaps me back into my childhood.
Mm, great.
So
Well,
having
that's,
the right, oh, go ahead, Adrian. We want
sorry,
to talk
go ahead.
about. No, I was just going to say, having the right teacher, I guess, is very important. Like when you got to Curtis, you must have had a teacher that you really bonded with and that helped you flourish with your own talent.
Yeah, I would say so. I think that it was very I mean, the teacher definitely my teacher Ida Kavafian was such a huge inspiration to that development in my entire violin playing, but also just as a human being. I will say that I think probably the biggest motivator was the fact of being just transplanted from a relatively small town, relative small city, into just blah in the middle of the Northeast to Philadelphia, New York, DC, and just kind of being overwhelmed by the amount of talent that was in one school in one 2,000 square foot house, basically. And I think that for me, at the very beginning, I was having a lot of this imposter syndrome, being like, I'm not supposed to be here. I don't belong. And what am I doing here? I think there was a mistake. And did I do completely the wrong thing? And basically, I remember going through that over the first couple of months. And I think that it was a combination of just finding myself a little bit and also finding a way to communicate with my teachers and my classmates and balancing and starting my performing career at 15 or 16 at the time, because that was when I won the Montreal Standard Life, at the time Standard Life competition, Manulife competition it's called now. And I've actually never been to Montreal before that, and it all kind of just came at once, and suddenly I was playing. And yeah, I think definitely, without the help of my teacher at the time, Ida Kavafi, I think I would have been kind of all over the place. And she always brought me back down to earth because, we're in an industry where everybody's just saying like, oh, how wonderful you are. It's like the best thing since sliced bread. And it's just really nice to have someone really pull you back down and just telling like, yeah, it's great that you're doing a lot of good stuff, but also you're still really young and you still need to learn a lot. And um, you know, it's really easy for our heads to get too big. So I think that was the biggest kind of in a small summary that I can describe my experience at Curtis, and being so young and going into a school like that at that stage of my life.
That's
Oh, it
great about what you're talking about in terms of grounding yourself at Curtis with Ida Gavafian. How about like when you were shooting up as a young musician in Victoria? Who are your teachers in BC?
Yeah, so I had a lot of teachers in BC. It was a combination of many different ones, and Victoria being a relatively smaller place to have a variety of teachers, I kind of studied a little bit with everybody at some point. And I would say that, uh, yeah, I studied with Sydney Humphreys for a little bit. I studied with Muge Buyuksilin for a little bit as well, but it was always in periods of 1 to 2 years. And I would honestly say my biggest teacher at the time was YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I
Really?
think it was around the time when YouTube started to come out, 2006, 2007, and I was just glued to the internet because there was these people that really like inspired me to start playing the violin, like Sarah Chang, Midori, Joshua Bell, Perlman, Anna Sophia Mutter. They were all on YouTube, and I was just like, oh, that's how you do it. Like because every time I used to hear them, it was always by sound. It was all through just recordings, but to actually see them and to see how they actually do it and seeing the fingerings that they're choosing to choose is just for me was just like a kid in a candy store.
Sure. Well, one of the main things here that we've seen is that, and I went to study in the States as well, that a lot of us Canadian musicians end up going down to the States and living in the States. And when Timmy, you and I were speaking about this, I was still in Oklahoma. I remember having a great time speaking with you on the phone and just explaining that, we call it the brain drain, and this happens in other industries, especially in the tech world, where the brightest talent in Canada just goes down to the States and stays there. And I think that in some ways it's because we don't have enough opportunities for our Canadian artists to really make a living in Canada. And June and I were talking about this in terms of if concert organizations really created more residencies for people to be able to be up here, and it may not, we may not be able to cajole you to live with us, Timmy, but I mean, U of O, University of Ottawa, did the right thing by giving you such a wonderful and well-deserved professorship. Now we can claim you again. You're living on Canadian soil. But in terms of being able to have you spend meaningful time with us in our community is huge. And June had started this. June, she had this vision. Nobody else was doing this, but every morning we would have the same program from I think it was like even Monday to Friday at one point.
Yeah.
And yeah, and this was incredible because artists got to play in the morning and then they got to explore Vancouver, and slowly it started to morph into a lot of outreach. And with June in the last few years, we really were pushing that forward. Now, because of COVID, we're doing this kind of thing instead of going out in the community just for safety's purpose. But in the future, this kind of residency will see this thing play out as an extension of what June's vision was, I think, at 35 years ago. And so when I was talking to Timmy said, yeah, great, let's do it. One thing was, what Timmy is such, you can see, and our audience can see this, he's one of, like, he's such a good soul. He's such a good you can see it. It emanates from him. Usually you see someone so young with all the things that he's been able to accomplish, and they're not as nice. But Timmy just, like his brother, he's sunshine in a bottle. And Timmy just said to me, this was like almost a year and a half ago, right, Timmy? Like almost 2 years ago, you said, you know what? Okay, we'll do. I think I could quarantine, and so we started thinking, okay, if you're going to stay here for 2 weeks, maybe we should make this into a longer thing. So Timmy, like you're going to be here. We're really excited. And I realized I didn't want to do too much for Timmy. I wanted Timmy, because Timmy is such an interesting, and everybody's going to see this firsthand, the artistic depth of Timmy. He's a technical wizard, but he matches it with an incredible artistry. And so I said to Timmy, look, I don't even care what you tell me what you want to play. And so Timmy, like this is no word of a lie, right? I don't think I chose one piece. You did everything. And we talked about a little bit of how we might structure this. First week all solo, second week with chamber. But I would love Timmy to walk us through what he thought. What do you think about that, June?
Well, I think it's just great, Tim. I think it's fabulous. Way to go. Yeah. It's wonderful that you could come here to me and do this, the 2 various weeks. I think that's just awesome.
Of course.
Program, Timmy.
Yeah, for sure. This program for me is very meaningful in many ways, and I hope it does also transpire to the audience as well. So the first week, of course, is solo violin, and I decided to start with Bach because I feel like there's a certain groundness that Bach always brings to the room. And actually, for me, I've actually never really had the opportunity to play even one whole sonata in its entirety. Just there isn't very many opportunities to do that, especially in a serious setting. So we're starting with that. And then second piece after that will be, it's called La Folia by Krzysztof Penderecki, who we lost last year. And for me, it's really important that I continue to expand my repertoire, but also the audience's ears. And this piece in particular, La Folia, is based off of a Baroque dance. So I found that connection between the two. And on a more personal note, this piece was actually premiered by Anna-Sophie Mutter, one of my biggest inspirations since I was very young. And the reason I learned this piece was actually we had a lesson on this between me and Miss Mutter. So, we spent 2 hours at Tanglewood just in middle of July, and she was just like, yeah, bring this piece for our next lesson. And we worked on it and maybe memorized it as well. So in many ways, it was just kind of a whole out of body experience, because she is such an incredible artist that works with living composers, or at the time living composer, and she still continues to really bring that to the forefront, on top of playing all of the most, staples of violin repertoire out there. And I think that that's so much of what I find inspiring as well, and wanted to try to bring that into the audience as well in Vancouver. I believe this will be the Canadian premiere of that piece, actually. It was written in 2013. And to tie it all up, because it is quite an experience to bring the audience into the music of Penderecki, I'm going to finish it with the Seventh Caprice by Paganini, which I actually learned during the pandemic. And it's one of my favorite pieces out there now for the Paganini 24 Caprices. It's quite long, actually, for a caprice. It's about 5 to 6 minutes. And it's one that really brings you throughout a whole journey. It's not just a technical exercise, but it's so operatic and so evident that this piece is more than just what the violin can do. That's beyond its, I mean, it's way beyond its time, I think, for when it was written. So that's the first week. And then the second week is a fusion of kind of, I guess, what's been going on in the whole world, a little bit of me, and also just how I want to view classical music going to the future. So first of all, the theme in my mind was kind of this journey from the west to the east. And we're going to start with Debussy's Violin Sonata, which I find such a great piece because it's such a French piece in so many ways, but yet it starts to incorporate the language of pentatonic scales and inspirations from the East. And that's when the start of globalization really went into its full effect. Then we're going into Tchaikovsky. So this Eurasian theme continues on. So we're going to do some short pieces, the Valse Sentimentale and the Valse Scherzo. And then I thought the next piece, we're going to still stay in Russia. And it's the Shostakovich 5 pieces for 2 violins and piano. And part of me is such a champion in making sure that I'm able to communicate and get the community involved. So this is why I decided that even if it's just a short piece, I would love to get someone that's from Vancouver to join me on stage. So it doesn't just bring the audience to my concerts, but also it's someone of their own that they're also watching at the same time. So it brings their families, their friends, and it's much more meaningful than just watching another person come into town and play a concert. So that's a 10-minute piece. And then we're going to finish off with a Central Asian piece called Sunshine on Tashkurgan by the Chinese composer Chen Gang, which I just added to my repertoire also over the past year and a half. So this concept for me is a very new one, and I'm really, really excited to really try this out at Music in the Morning.
Terrific, Timmy. And so this is exactly what June and I were talking about. Like when we get someone to come for 2 weeks, that first week is going to be pretty busy because Timmy's going to be performing, and he probably is going to start working out rehearsals with his people in the second week. But generally, it's always kind of a rush, But with 2 weeks and the weekend, Timmy was able to work with some of our local artists. Now, Chiharu Inuma is a pianist that our audience knows well. Last time, I think she played with Johannes Moser, and she's just a brilliant pianist and a wonderful collaborator. And when Timmy and I were talking about this, we were thinking, well, maybe we could find, I don't know, a string quartet or a Canadian artist. But then the one thing I did say was like, well, with COVID, it might be a little bit difficult. And so Timmy came up with this great piece with Shostakovich. And one of the things we started talking about was like, well, should we could get some, there's wonderful performers in BC and Vancouver especially, and could we get would it be a professor, would it be a professional artist? But I think with Timmy's upbringing here, it would be incredible to have a young artist. And Timmy, your vision is being seen here, and we're really excited to see this happen. Like we're going to have another recording with you when you're here, when we're all here, and we'd love to check in to see how those rehearsals are going and how you're enjoying your time in Vancouver.
Absolutely.
But just now, the programming just sounds amazing. I don't think maybe some people don't realize how programming is so important. I mean, to put a program together, I'm sure it's another gift that you have, that you actually can see what's happening and have a theme and see what's happening. I think your programming is just fantastic. I can hardly wait. Wow.
I can hardly wait too.
I did have a question though. Timmy, have you played a in-person concert yet so far in 2021?
Yeah, I did a couple in-person concerts. The first one I did was in April. That was the first time I actually did something, and that was in Ohio. Played Prokofiev's Second Violin Concerto with the orchestra. It was, with these live streaming concerts, it's always a really difficult situation to be in because you kind of get the worst of both worlds. You're getting the recording aspect, the fact that it's being stuck on there on the internet forever, but also you're getting the kind of uncertainty of a live concert. So that in combination, it doesn't really work so well because at least if you're recording it in a studio, you get to do it many times. And then if you're at a live concert, you kind of have that thrill of energy. But it's what we had to deal with over the past 15 months. But that was the first one, and then I did another one in Montreal with the Montreal Symphony, and that was outside actually, and that was really an interesting one because we did it at the airport, and there was if COVID was going to stop us, the rain was going to stop us, and it did. And then if the rain didn't stop us, then the airplanes were going to stop us because they were all delayed, so they all had to take off an hour later, and then you had these Boeing 747s just taking off, and we're playing Sibelius Violin Concerto. So we're all trying to make the best that we can. But I just did come back from Europe actually 2 days ago, and that was the first opportunity that I did in-person concerts in the closest way as we did before COVID happened. And it was 500 people. Everyone was wearing masks, and everyone was distanced as well. But that was, we're slowly creeping back into it, I think, and hopefully nothing surprises us. But this will really be kind of the first set of concerts where it feels, I think, that hopefully it's going to be somewhat normal.
Well, Adrian, you've done just a fabulous job of getting the COVID restrictions for music in the morning. I mean, you've really planned it wonderfully.
Well,
So nobody has to worry about the protocol. We've got masks and things. So I think you've done a great job getting it happening.
oh, thank you, June. Well, I mean, Timmy was there at the beginning. We were talking about at that time, hand sanitizer and masks were in short supply when we first started talking to me, because we were talking about maybe even doing this last September. And now we have our shot, but we have lots of masks, lots of hand sanitizer, and we've had over 18 months to really think this through. So we really do hope people will show. And I know that most of our audience is also vaccinated, and we're in a pretty good place. So I'm really excited to see this thing come through.
I can hardly wait. That's how I feel after talking with you, Timmy. So we'll be talking again because I've got to hear how it's going. Okay.
Okay.
Terrific.
Great.
And okay, terrific. Well, so everybody stay tuned. As of the third week of August, you have 1 week to purchase your tickets. The subscribers are more than welcome. We love the subscriptions. But there are going to be single ticket options, and we just ask that you don't come to the door because we're not doing door tickets, but we will be honoring tickets up till 24 hours before the concert so that we have time to prepare. So okay, terrific. Jenny, did you have any final words you wanted to part with?
I'm just really looking forward to coming back to BC. It's been a bit too long, so can't wait to breathe the fresh air, and I'm sure it's gonna communicate it through the audience through my playing. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Timmy.